In the dungeon boss justice system, YouTube is represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the PvP teams who defend the tower, and the influencers who would traverse it. These are their stories. Good afternoon, my dungeon boss brethren. Back by non popular demand, if you will. It's not popular or backed by any particular reason, but it is Tower Tuesday. I wanted to make a quick video, as quick as can be at least, about actually beating the tower, going for your pair of achievements for winning it 5 times in a row, as well as beating it without losing any heroes. I am at a point where I can do that at will. That's what I'm here to show you today, as it should be no surprise that it's going to be done doing the light team. Now it's not a matter of grabbing the most powerful light team and going through and burning through everything, because that is not going to get you the achievement for not dying. You do have to be a little bit cautious and play it a little bit appropriately. If you watched my PvP series on how to use the light team, it's very similar to that. But basically, after the first couple of turns, then we kind of let things marinate a little bit, and I'll walk through that as we do the first few. Um, More important to those two achievements is to make sure that when you are doing PvP before you start the tower, make sure you are in Silver League. Do your Silver League first. That way, when you load up the tower, you're only going to get bronze and silver heroes. That is priority number one for doing the tower. Now, if you want to go through and go against legendary Rayla teams, by all means, spend all your time in open PvP and then open the tower and let me know how that goes. But start it out in Silver League, then go to the tower to let it render, and it will render all of these garbage heroes that you can easily beat. The nice thing about this for the beat it 5 times in a row achievement is that even if something goes catastrophically wrong with your light team, you will end up with some other teams that you can beat, provided that you have actual heroes. Now, the other big gotcha with this particular mechanic here is you probably will want to be at level 80 to do so. When you're at level 80, the maximum level of heroes that you will go against is 83. If you were at level 70, for example, you could go up against 80s, for example. There's no defined limit in terms of how high it can go. I believe it's based off of roster power. So if you have a strong light team, they may throw some higher levels at you. So it's possible that you may not be able to do this effectively and consistently until you are a much higher level. But if you got all of your stars and your ascensions on your light team, you should be good to go. All right, the first round is basically just standard PvP. We're just getting things started. Contrary to what the light team is supposed to be in terms of just a downright killing machine, what your goal here, what your goal with this run and these runs specifically is not necessarily about killing, but it's about not dying and it's about energy perpetuation. So when we start out, for example, with Rayla, if you look at the cooldown this, it's 6. You cannot be in a position where you're starting off a floor without that thing off of cooldown. So that's how we're going to go through and ultimately handle this. And really, you're only going to run into a few teams that really jeopardize that, and those are people that cannot be shocked or can't be hit, for example. Like Sybil is one of those ones where she'll just kind of hide back there and not get debuffed. Echo doesn't get debuffs. Dagon doesn't get shocked. Stonefist doesn't get shocked, I don't think. You run into some instances like that. But it starts off all the same. Doesn't really matter who we kill because this is an underpowered team here. But again, we're not trying to actually burn through these quickly. We want something like this, what we have right now. 3 people shocked. That is amazing for us. It's only the only thing better than that is 4 people shocked. Echo does not use his ability on the first turn. We just do a simple attack. Zen basically never uses abilities unless you're in a spot where you weren't able to protect Rayla. Zen will then use his first ability to make sure that she stays safe. Jin always silences on turn 1. or turn one, if you will. And then Rayla comes around. The reason we don't want to attack with Jin is we don't want to kill anybody. Now Rayla comes around. There's three people shocked. That five is going to get really, really small. So we get plus one energy, plus one energy, plus one energy. Great. And then Echo comes around and does plus two. And from that point on, now Zen just does another basic attack. Doesn't matter who he kills at that point. And then Jin at this point has 8 stacks of his Gathering Storm. Fire at will. And now here's the thing. So notice Rayla is pretty much ready to go. She'll be ready to go in the next fight. Now it's just cleanup. Finish these things up with basic attacks unless you are in a dire situation. Finishing with basic attacks lets everybody start out the next one with as much energy as possible. That is your goal here. And then you perpetuate that process the entire time. And so as long as we don't run into a team where Rayla can't recharge herself, then we're going to be sitting pretty good. And by and large, Rayla is going to be largely untouched this entire run just because she's constantly being protected. So floor 2, we're going to run into that same instance where Selwyn is going to be protected by his ice block. Nothing we can do about that other than to hope we get some shocking on the other 3, which we will. And we just let this thing go over and over and over and over. So we got 3 people shocked again. When we get into rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, you can choose to use Echo's Lightning Storm if you want. All that does is it brings up his third ability back, which I like. So I usually do that just for the sake of doing it. Um, and then generally I attack the person that has about the highest health so I don't accidentally kill somebody until Rayla can do her thing, get her energy back, and then we'll light them up. So Echo does his recharge plus the crit. We load the chamber for Jin. Jin comes along and will wipe the floor with most people. Specifically, when I get Selwyn teams like this, just so that I don't end up in a weird, tricky spot, sometimes I like to throw a stun on him, just because we do get to a point where Rayla's um, shield will release itself and then she'll be vulnerable. When you do that stun, Jin usually comes in there and cleans it up and you're safe again. But I don't like being in a spot where we're potentially vulnerable, especially if you're going for achievement. The name of the game is survival as best as you can. Okay, so there are that process just is a rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. The first instance where I would call that into question in this run here is honestly never. There's not going to be an instance where we're running into multiple people that can't be killed. Stonefist occasionally because he has such high health pool. But that is the process. You rinse and repeat that process over and over and over. Every single time that you start out this tower, you usually start off with Rayla being fully charged. I'll do one floor here as a recovery floor just to show what happens if you're in a rough spot. So I'm going to start out as normal because that's what you would normally do. You're going to run through things as you see fit. It does require a little bit of focus. Don't try to get cute with it and accidentally kill people with Jin, for example. That disrupts things, but that's one of the things you have to pay attention. So if somebody's distracting you, it's easy to hit the wrong button and forget what turn you're on. I'm not going to do that specifically. I'm going to run through a different instance that sometimes occurs. So like right now, these guys are all kind of surviving, right? So and that's fine. When you get high health heroes like Bolvis or tanks, you are going to see that from time to time. You'll also sometimes see it with Nub Nub, who will come in and drop a big heal on everybody. Nub Nub and Yasmin together sometimes make for a little bit of trouble. So now let's say we weren't paying attention, we got distracted, and now we whip out Rayla's third ability. And so that was out of turn for us, and we run the risk of like, wait a minute, what are we supposed to do now? And most of the time, what I usually suggest is if you realize that you did something out of turn, stop what you're doing and try to do basic attacks. And then if you can heal or recharge with Echo, do those so you're not attacking to get just an extra turn in there. But if it comes down to it and you run into a spot where you have now messed up your mojo, You don't want to try to just survive the next floor. The whole goal of the next floor is full on recovery. So we want to get to a spot where we can survive this one, but then also be ready to go for the next floor. We don't want to perpetuate issues with our energy usage for 2, 3 floors at a time. But now we look at this. Rayla's third ability is fully on cooldown, basically. There's nothing we can do here. So what you want to do is make sure that you're mitigating this crowd control as best as possible. Worst thing you could do, the absolute worst thing you could do at this point here is use her second ability. Her second ability is going to make Jin use his second ability, and then guess what? You're putting silence on silence, and that is a waste. Um, so it's not going to hurt us to use hail of arrows and let things go off for the most part. However, I don't recommend that either. Even though that's going to kill people and do stuff, we don't want Zen to put his first ability on somebody that we're not controlling. So your objective here is to just do some basic attacks, do some surviving, and then when Zen comes along, we have 2 turns usually with him. So you can get cute with it and try to do shields first. I don't recommend it. In this case here, they're all silenced, so we're probably going to be okay. But that's not always the case. Sometimes there are people that are non-silenced, and sometimes there are people that will hit multiple times. Or if you're going against dark heroes, there is some risk involved there. So I usually say protect Rayla at all costs. As long as Rail is alive, if somebody else dies, we can sub them out in subsequent rounds and still go for the 5 in a row achievement. But we want to preserve Rayla at all costs. We will get the shields up the next turn to protect everybody else. But now, because we didn't use silence, Jin can come along and use silence as we see fit. For most everybody else, their energy is not usually a concern. Your priority should be targeting with Rayla and getting her abilities up. In a perfect world, we're going to get to the end of this one where we don't need to use her third ability in this floor. So we'll usually go about doing this in a manner where we can kill people that we need to kill and dump some high attacks on them. So like Balog is a dark hero, he should be susceptible to a lot of light attacks. We should be able to whittle him down pretty good. So now we throw that hard attack on Balog. Not quite there, but we can finish him off with Zen if we want to. Which I will. I don't want him doing any attacks on anybody else. And then we can light him up with Jin. And now we're getting down to the point where we're about ready to finish this one off here. So Rayla survived herself. She's only got 1 turn left, and then her cooldown is up, which is good. Lost a little bit on Jin. That's gonna happen here or there. Um, so we'll get some extra crits out of everybody just to do the thing there. And then we're going to try and save with Zen, for example. We'll do some heals. Everybody's back to full health. Start working on the threats. Rayla's back to full capacity. We don't need her second ability, so we can stun on him. And now we'll run through the next floor just to see where everybody is at with their rotation. So it's very tempting to use her third ability once it comes back up. I don't recommend using it at that point unless you still had 3 opponents up and they had reasonable amount of health. Because otherwise, like I said, you're just going to perpetuate that, and then all of a sudden you end up back-to-back floors where that's on 4 or 5 cooldown. You just don't want to end up in that spot here. So even if things don't go your way, you can recover. It's obviously more difficult if you're at a lower level and you're going against a higher level team. Um, but now we're right where we need to be. We focus on Rayla's third ability. She's protected. Everybody else is protected. We got 3 shocks out there. That's exactly what we wanted there. And Echo can lay some more shock down if he wants and bring up his third ability. Zen, the only thing he doesn't have is his third ability, which we weren't going to use anyways. And Jin is right back where he needs. We need Silence on turn 1, and we need Storm of the Ancestors on turn 2. So everything looks good on that front there. Rayla comes around with her Arrow Storm. Recharge with Echo. Basic attack with Zen. Light him up with Jin. And now it's just basic cleanup at this point here. So kill him, kill him. And this is a good instance of watching Stonefist. Stonefist likes to do his little smackdown attack. If you're not careful, he can hit Rayla with that after she drops her shield. We got him on a little bit of a stun lock, which is good, and we took care of business. So ending with Stonefist is always great because it lets you cycle through a couple of turns to get energy back. Um, but there we are on our way to a perfect tower run. Not going to finish this one out because I think you get the point at this juncture. So no need to keep going. Um, but know that beating the tower perfectly is well within your reach once you get to 80, unless you have really, really, really been slacking on your light team, in which case you just need to, you know, work on your team a little bit. Any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, take care, everybody. Have a great day, and we will see you next time. Bye bye. Thank you for watching, and remember, I make YouTube videos for the American working man, because that's what I am, and that's who I care about.